Tragedy near San Antonio this evening as a gunman walks into a Sutherland Springs church, killing at least 27 people, including children. Law enforcement officials say there are dozens of injuries. Sutherland Springs is about 40 miles southeast of San Antonio and about a half an hour south of Austin. Now, these numbers are likely to change, but here's what we know so far. Witnesses say they heard rapid gunfire around 11:30 this morning near Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church as people were inside worshiping. Police are reporting that the shooter is dead, and ABC News has confirmed his identity as 26-year-old Devin Kelly of New Braunfels. An official close to the situation tells the Associated Press that the gunman fled the church in a vehicle after the shooting and was then killed. The FBI, ATF, Texas Rangers, and local police have cleared the scene and are aggressively working to put together more details on what unfolded there. Meanwhile, many of the injured are in critical condition after being airlifted to nearby hospitals. All right, now Governor Greg Abbott is in the area, and we are expecting him to give us our first official briefing with more information on the victims and the shooter at Stockdale City Hall. That's the next town over from Sutherland Springs. We'll take that live as soon as that press conference begins. But first, we head out to the scene of this tragic shooting with KVUE's Brandon Jones and Tony Plohetsky standing by near Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church with more information. Tony, Brandon.
Hey Chris, you know, I have to tell you, it's such a somber mood out here in Sutherland Springs. We arrived about 2 hours ago, and we are right across from the church here. You can see media set up here. That's the First Baptist Church back there. You know, a lot of family members and people just coming by to check on their loved ones. And for more on that, we have Tony Plohetsky. Tony, you've been out here all afternoon, and the stories are just tragic of what you're hearing.
Tragic and just so scary, Brandon. I was talking to a man who lives across the street from the Baptist Church here, and he described cooking breakfast around 11:30 this morning when he heard the sound of more than 100 shots. He did not want to go on camera, Brandon, but he told me he stepped to his front porch and literally saw churchgoers running through a field trying to reach safety as the gunfire continued here at the Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church. But as you said, Brandon, all afternoon we have been watching family members coming to the scene here, trying to find out whether or not their loved ones are among the living or among the dead. I talked to a woman whose father, she said, is 51 years old. He is a faithful Sunday morning worshiper here. She believes he was in that church crowd this morning when those shots rang out. She said that she has been trying to reach him since soon after she learned about this shooting. And Brandon, sadly, she has not been able to reach her father this afternoon.
Well, we're just going to hold out prayer that she does hear from her father as well. You know, meanwhile, police are still looking for a motive in this case here. We do know that there's going to be a prayer vigil right here at the post office. That is tonight at 7. And we'll continue to bring more information on this case as it becomes available on what happened here in Sutherland Springs. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Brandon. Now, this is a small town. The population is less than 1,000, so many of those people that live in that town either knew or were family members with people who were in that congregation. The First Baptist Church congregation, about 50 people on average. It's a small church, but it's in a small town, so you can assume most people in that city do know each other. And President Trump is tweeting from Japan expressing his condolences. He says, "May God be with the people of Sutherland Springs, Texas. The FBI and law enforcement are on the scene, and I'm monitoring the situation from Japan." And Governor Greg Abbott, as we mentioned, just made it there to Sutherland Springs, but earlier today he released this statement on the shooting saying, "Cecilia and I want to send our sincerest thoughts and prayers to all of those affected by this evil act. I want to thank law enforcement and ask all Texans to pray for the Sutherland Springs community during this time of mourning and loss."
Lost folks, and be with us dear as we learn to deal with these days to come. I'm sorry.
There is, neighbors are reporting that a gunman went into the church and opened fire. Neighbors are saying that they never saw anybody come out. Multiple units are on scene. They've also called out an ambulance, which is for multiple casualties. Here in, let me again tell you this, we're outside of Floresville. This is about 10 miles east in Sutherland Springs at the First Baptist.
That is a reporter on scene. As you saw, the community is praying for the injured this evening and talking about what they've seen. KVUE's Nicole Rosales joins us now from the newsroom with reaction from those close to the church when that shooting happened. What are they saying, Nicole?
Well, Chris, people, they're still in shock, still trying to piece together what exactly happened this afternoon. Now, many of them are turning to social media, sharing their thoughts. One user posted, "There's fresh pain in the family today. Christians aren't exempt from heartache, and today's shooting moves us to pray for our extended Christian family in Sutherland Springs." Another said, "To the victims' families in Sutherland Springs shooting, I'm praying for you all and wish you strength in these tragic times." And a North Texas woman tweeted, "So much that I can't process about the shooting in Sutherland Springs. This tiny town is next to the town where most of my family lives. But for those who live near or around this area, it hit them much harder, doing their best to lean on one another."
It's devastating for us and for our community, but God's still in control.
Yes, sir.
Okay? He's still in control. And no matter what happened, that we stand on the fact that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord.
And just like Chris mentioned, Sutherland Springs is made up of just a few hundred people, so this tragedy is far-reaching, impacting nearly every person in some form.
There's no words. This happens in New York, in big cities. No one's safe. My dad's already taught me how to get the gun out of the safe and get them loaded. I mean, if it can happen here, guys, it can happen anywhere.
Now, there's still a lot that we don't know at this time, but we will have live team coverage for you to bring you the latest updates on the Night Beat. In the newsroom, Nicole Rosales, KVUE News.
Thank you, Nicole. As you mentioned, there's still a lot we don't know. We don't know the exact number of victims who were killed or shot and injured. What we do know, however, is from the pastor of that small church. His daughter, Annabelle Pomeroy, 14 years old, is confirmed dead in that shooting. Her father, Frank, the pastor of the church, was not there this morning. Him and his wife were out of town, but their daughter was there. And they did confirm this morning that she was killed. Again, we'll bring you the very latest on the updates from this as soon as the governor gives us that press briefing. But for now, let's toss it over to meteorologist Nathan Gogo to talk about our forecast. Nathan?
Yeah, very warm day out there for today. In fact, we saw record high temperatures in Austin. At Camp Mabry, we hit 88 degrees, 91, believe it or not, in San Marcos, and in San Antonio, we hit 91 as well. Typically this time of year, we're in the mid-70s, so this is about 15 degrees above normal of where we're supposed to be. Mid-80s right now, still warm evening out there as you're headed out. Temperatures will drop eventually, but we're still going to be right around 70 degrees as we wake up for tomorrow. Now, you might be wondering, when are we going to start cooling things off? Well, the good news for you folks is soon. We have a couple more days of unseasonably warm weather, but this cold front up in the Red River area in North Texas is going to be swinging on down as we head towards midweek, and big changes. In fact, some places about 30 degrees cooler on Wednesday. We'll talk more about that coming up, Chris.
All right, thank you, Nathan. As we promised, we will bring you the latest on the press briefing, and we are told that the governor has taken the stand. We go now to Stockdale City Hall, that's just outside of Sutherland Springs, where the governor is set to take the podium and tell us the latest on the victim count and what we have learned about the shooter. Let's go now to Stockdale City Hall.
As a state, we are dealing with the largest mass shooting in our state's history. There's so many families who've lost family members, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The tragedy, of course, is worsened by the fact that it occurred in a church, a place of worship, where these people were innocently gunned down. We mourn their loss, but we support their family members. We appreciate the first responders and what they've done to help respond to this challenge. They are continuing in their efforts as they put all the pieces of a very complex puzzle together to try to provide their community all the answers they need and deserve. Unfortunately, I'm sad to tell you, to confirm, at least at this moment in time, there are 26 lives that have been lost. We don't know if that number will rise or not. All we know is that's too many. And this will be a long, suffering mourning for those in pain. We ask for God's comfort, for God's guidance, and for God's healing for all those who are suffering. As governor, I ask for every mom and dad at home tonight that you put your arm around your kid and give your kid a big hug and let them know how much you love them, knowing that we support each other. Tell your friend and your neighbor that you support them and that you will work with them. I'm very proud of the way that we have so many people working together to respond to this. Already, in talking to the emergency team in Texas, has reported that the Emergency Medical Task Force from San Antonio was deployed to help respond to the magnitude of this tragedy. San Antonio area hospitals and trauma centers have coordinated with regard to patient movement and patient care. The Red Cross has set up Family Assistance Center to help all families affected by this. One thing that is very important for everybody affected by this, whether you're a family member or non-family member, is that you avail yourself of counseling resources that will be made readily available in abundance. Now, we have so many people who have helped respond in coordinated fashion already. I want to express my gratitude to the President who called from overseas, my gratitude to Senators Cornyn and Cruz, with whom I've already spoken, as well as members of the Texas legislature. But when you look at the robust response from just the immediate area, I want to express my gratitude to the Sheriff of Wilson County, to the District Attorney from this area, Audrey Lewis. The reason I say this area is because her territory is larger than just Wilson County. And to DPS Regional Director Freeman Martin. Each of those three will be speaking shortly. But also to the mayor of the area where we are located right now, the mayor of Stockdale, to the Department of Homeland Security, to the ATF, the FBI, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, the Guadalupe County Sheriff's Office, the Wilson County Sheriff's Office, the Livernia Police Department, the Stockdale City Marshal's Office, and the Seguin Police Department. And I have no doubt that there are other law enforcement as well as emergency agencies that have responded to this. And I regret if I did not mention you. Just know that we appreciate the profound way that everybody's come together. I would like to now turn things over to Sheriff Joe Tackett from Wilson County, in whose jurisdiction the crime occurred and whose jurisdiction we're in right now.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your kind words. We all in here know what happened today, and it's something we all say does not happen in small communities. Well, we found out today it does. We need your support. You know, as media, don't blow it out there that, you know, it should have never happened, because it does happen. And we sincerely feel sorry for all of the people that are involved. We don't know names of any of the victims at this time, because we're still trying to work the crime scene. As we get the names, we're going to be contacting family members and letting them know what we have. But at this time, we don't have any names of any of the victims. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the District Attorney, Audrey Lewis.
Thank you all. We know that you have lots of questions that you want answers to, but understand this. Our number one priority and goal is to the victims and their families at this point, and we ask that you respect that as well. We want to make sure to notify victims' families before media gets a hold of that information. It is critical to those families that if we have bad news to bear, they need to hear it before it's announced on the media, and we're going to try to work to ensure that that occurs. We have lots of law enforcement who are all working very well together with federal and local and state agencies, and we highly commend the professionalism that's occurring. But because we have to make sure that that crime scene is handled appropriately, it takes time. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of victims' families wanting answers that we don't really have for them at this very moment. We will be updating them as soon as we have information and providing that information so that they have the answers they need to deal with either the loss or go to their loved ones who may be in the hospital. We appreciate the work of all law enforcement, and we appreciate you guys. We know that you're trying to get out information. We don't feel there is a threat that's continuing, and I think that the media has done a pretty good job of making sure that that's been pronounced to the public. But we are working very diligently both to inform the families and to preserve that crime scene and make sure that it's handled appropriately. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. And next is DPS Regional Director Freeman Martin.
Everybody here wants facts, wants information about what's going on, and we'd love to provide you more. But if you came here wanting to know the motive behind this shooting, you're going to leave here disappointed. We have certain facts that we can release to protect the integrity of the investigation. We have to release it in a timely fashion and collect the facts and make sure our information is correct before we release it. We're here assisting the Sheriff, Joe Tackett. There's multiple agencies involved: DPS, Texas Rangers, FBI, HSI, ATF, Bexar County SO, and many, many others. We are all working together to support the Sheriff in this investigation. At approximately 11:20 this morning, a suspect was seen at a Valero gas station in Sutherland Springs, Texas. He was dressed in all black. That suspect crossed the street to the church, exited his vehicle, and began firing at the church. That suspect then moved to the right side of the church and continued to fire. That suspect entered the church and continued to fire. As he exited the church, a local resident grabbed his rifle and engaged that suspect. The suspect dropped his rifle, which was a Ruger AR assault-type rifle, and fled from the church. Our local citizen pursued the suspect at that time. A short time later, as law enforcement responded, that suspect, right at the Wilson-Guadalupe County line, he ran off the roadway and crashed out and was found deceased in his vehicle. At this time, we don't know if it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if he was shot by our local resident who engaged him in gunfire. We know he's deceased in the vehicle. The suspect has not been completely identified. We believe he's a young white male, maybe in his early 20s. He was dressed in all black tactical type gear and was wearing a ballistic vest. The delay in getting him identified is there were multiple weapons in the vehicle, and the vehicle has been processed by our Texas Ranger Special Operations Group bomb techs. There's a lot of work to be done in this investigation. We know that there are 23 found deceased inside the church, 2 deceased outside the church, and now one of them that was transported that was injured has deceased, bringing the total to 26. We have approximately 20 that are transported local and in hospitals in San Antonio with injuries that vary from minor to very severe. We know the ages range from 5 years old to 72 years of age. There's a lot of work to be done. We are only hours into this investigation, which is going to take a significant length of time. We will continue to provide information as it becomes available. We know you're going to have a lot of questions. There are many, many that we cannot answer. We continue to process crime scenes. We have multiple crime scenes. We have the church. We have outside the church. We have where the suspect vehicle was located. We have following up on the suspect and where he's from, his residence. We have many, many people to interview. We have Texas Rangers at all the hospitals locating those and interviewing those who were injured. So not a lot of information to give at this time, but the state of Texas, we have every resource that we have available: Texas Rangers, Special Operations, Texas Highway Patrol, Crime Scene Labs, Victim Services, the Texas Division of Emergency Management. Every resource we have available is working, and at the end of this investigation, we'll be able to answer any reasonable question as to what happened.
Was the neighbor injured? The one that engaged gunfire?
No, he was not. With that?
Great. Well, thank you all, and thanks once again to law enforcement at all levels, from the local level to the state level to the federal level. The collaborative working relationship is one that will ensure a swift and certain evaluation of exactly what happened, and we will provide that explanation as quickly as possible. We will be leaving here and going to meet with some of the family members of those affected as soon as we finish up, but we'll take a few questions.
How many were in the church and how many escaped death or being wounded?
Anybody who knows that, feel free.
We don't have those numbers. There were people in the church that escaped that were not injured, but we don't have all that information. I'm sorry.
Was Mass being held at the time?
Yes.
Was the suspected shooter part of any sort of known militia group? Is that being investigated?
Not at this time.
That is being investigated, but we can't say one way or the other.
What about him was suspicious to begin with, or what initiated the original call?
Those are the types of things that are under intense investigation right now, and hopefully we will learn about them in the next 24 hours.
The revised total of victims, that does not include the shooter, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us anything about a possible raid at the suspect's home?
All those types of things will be pieces of information that will be coming out shortly.
Were any victims outside the church?
Yes.
Did you know anything about any social media postings that he might have hinted that he would have done this?
All of those types of things are being looked into as we speak.
We'll take one more question.
When are you going to
know
release
if the shooter's family was?
Say it again.
Do you know if the shooter's family was in attendance at the church at the time, or had any notion?
Unaware of that.
When we release his name?
As soon as possible.
Was he known to the community, or was he an outsider?
But we will confirm that when we learn it.
How can people help?
Governor.
As I think you're realizing, there's a lot of information. We want to piece the puzzle together before we provide you any misinformation, and we want to make sure that we meet with the family members who are affected by this before we release information publicly. We hope to get this information to you as soon as possible. Thank you all very much.
And the call that came in was an active shooter. There was no calls that came in of a suspicious person or anything before.
So how did y'all know he was at the Valero?
After the fact, we started investigating and found out.
The videotape from the service?
No, they haven't got it yet.
Okay, so what we just learned once again, that there are 26 people who are dead in Sutherland Springs. That does not include the shooter, who is also dead. There is no motive that authorities can release right now. We also learned that at some point after he began opening fire, the suspect did engage in gunfire with what we'll call a Good Samaritan. And we don't know if the shooter was killed by that Good Samaritan or if it was a self-inflicted gunshot, but there is no active threat right now. This does make this the deadliest shooting in Texas history. Once again, 26 people killed this afternoon. We'll be right back.